You're the Spurp back with another video, and I just got done watching the first episode of Dune Prophecy. This is a prequel to the Dune movies. It takes place 10,000 years before Paul Atreides, and I really enjoyed this first episode. There's a lot to kind of break down, so yeah, let's talk about it. So I like how they give you the introduction of, the thinking machines and that whole war between them, and how Carino, the Carinos came into power, seeing just kind of the inception of the Bene Gesserits, with the Sisterhood, seeing Raquel. She is the Mother Superior, the original, before getting passed down to Valya Harkonnen. You also start to see the beginnings of them breeding leaders and whatnot, and what we know in the current Dune movies. And I really like this, that the Mother Superior wanted Valya to be her successor, and a lot of people don't really see eye to eye with her. And even seeing her use the voice, and that's kind of like the early stages of the voice, is really interesting. Now, it's not as great as the movies, and maybe that's done on purpose because it's something she's been working on, you know what I'm saying? And I'm curious to see if she does end up using that in the future. She ends up killing one of her sisters because the sister that ends up dying believes more in the traditional way of doing things, like guiding the Imperium, not trying to control it, which that ends up being the case for the next 10,000 years, and we're seeing the early stages of that. Then we jump 30 years later, and it also says it's 116 years after the end of the Great Machine War, and this is 10,000 plus years before the birth of Paul Atreides. And I really like to see the aesthetics, because the Bene Gesserit operate in mystery. They're very to themselves when we watch the Dune movies, but here we get to see just the whole kind of shebang. It's just we see them training. We see that Valya is now the Mother Supreme. They're also getting ready for this marriage where she wants to, take somebody of royal blood and make them a Bene Gesserit. Here we get introduced to Constantine, which this is the brother to Nez, which will be the next person that we see once we get to the Emperor, his homeland and whatnot. And we also see Kieran Atreides. He's the one that's training Nez, but Nez has a interesting dark side about her, on top of having this kind of relationship with Atreides, which I'm curious to see where that's going to kind of go. So it's interesting that there's still this kind of love thing going on, even though she knows she needs to marry into this family so the Emperor can get this guy's fleet. So what I also like about this scene between the Emperor and this Duke is you also see the Bene Gesserit communicating with sign language, like we've seen in the movies. So while they're scheming, the Emperor and the Duke, because obviously the Duke wants something, he wants some power out of this, and the Emperor's hands kind of tied because he really needs this guy's army. The Bene Gesserit are already kind of planning some things out behind the scenes. Then we get some more of the Bene Gesserit and how they train their candidates and stuff while doing combat. Also teaching them how to lie or tell if somebody's lying using, criminals and stuff. A lot of really dope information, and just how, the Bene Gesserit operate and stuff, which they didn't really show or tell that much in the movies. They're expanding on it in this series, and I really like this, seeing this montage and whatnot. But back to Nez, because she is talking with her mother about this whole arrangement, this whole marriage, and she has to get married pretty much to this 9-year-old kid. And this is just all the power play, and Nez definitely has a dark side to her, which is really interesting. And then this is where we get introduced to Desmond Hart. He was said to be dead on Arrakis, but he's popped back up. Anytime you see this guy casting anything raised by wolves, even Vikings, you really can't trust him. He's gonna really put on a performance. He's definitely a wild card. And this leads to one of the Bene Gesserit's, Kesha, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She starts having this vision or a nightmare about something bad that's about to happen. So she becomes really concerned about Nez and just this whole arrangement and whatnot. So she goes to Valya to tell her concerns, and thinks that this might be a mistake. This might lead to something darker, a darker future. But she's not really trying to hear none of that, because she wants this to happen regardless of the outcome. And also seeing how they siphon through people, how they pick certain candidates, who are their favorites, is really interesting. Like I said, just getting more explanation on just how the Bene Gesserit just operate throughout the galaxy, and just how they're able to gain power and influence is really interesting. The Emperor's wife really doesn't like the whole idea of this marriage, but he continues to tell her, like, I need this fleet. I need to be able to gain power in Arrakis, because that's going to be that's a pivotal part of the galaxy to control because of spice. Then we finally get to the wedding, and the certain things that we saw in Kesha's vision are starting to kind of be on display. And you see this kid, and you see the look on his face, and he really doesn't want to do this. He really has no choice in the matter. Nez is doing this because she knows that she's going to become a Bene Gesserit, so very interesting stuff going on here. Then we cut to the get together after the whole ceremony. We also see Harkonnen with hair, and the Emperor just kind of brushing him off, not really paying attention to him, almost treating them like Lannisters, you know what I'm saying? But what's interesting here is where we see Nez's dark side, as this kid is obviously hiding something, and she wants to know what he's hiding. And it's this like little robot thing, and people start to freak the fuck out. The Emperor's wife's like, this stuff is illegal. The Duke is like, y'all are too kind of uptight about this. And the Emperor, because he needs this marriage to happen, he pretty much says, like, it's not a big deal. And the wife just looks at him in complete disgust, like, how could you let this happen? You're the Emperor. You should kind of enforce this a little bit more. Even Nez goes as far as to threaten the little kid, saying, like, if you try something like that again, I'll stab you myself. I was just like, God damn. Then we see Nez and Constantine go into the city because she wants to kind of do one more party before getting officially married. She wants to get one last good fuck in with Kieran Atreides here. While that's going on, we have a really fascinating conversation between Desmond and the Emperor, and Desmond pretty much letting his true intentions being known, that he does not really fuck with the Bene Gesserit. He doesn't like how they're controlling things. And this leads to the Emperor to kind of look back at the highlight tapes of him at Arrakis and stuff like that. While this is going on, Desmond has a conversation with the little boy, and then that conversation pretty much turns into him saying like, your sacrifice won't go into vain. And all of a sudden this kid starts to kind of burn from the inside out. And I'm like, holy fuck, that was extremely brutal. And then we cut to the Sisterhood, and the same thing's kind of happening to old girl, and it's pretty much being burned from the inside out. And this thing is just absolutely brutal. And I thought that was a really interesting way to end off the episode. So now, with the prince essentially being killed off, what's going to happen now? That kind of derails the plans, and Desmond obviously is here to shake things up, maybe hunt down all the different Bene Gesserits to kind of stop them from their plannings. But I overall enjoyed this first episode. It has a lot of information, a lot of different characters that they introduce in this one episode. Let me know how you guys feel about this episode in the comments below. Till next time, I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.